Oh, hello there. Welcome to another edition of Down the Donut Hole podcast. And I don't know if we really know what we're talking about today.
We never know what we're talking about. That's the
It's
beauty
another
of it.
day,
That's the beauty of
it's
being down the
not,
donut hole. You don't have to make a whole bunch of sense.
it's not May the 4th. It's not Cinco de Mayo. So
No, but you know what? Yesterday we talked about Cinco de Mayo, and we talked about the difference between that and the Day of the Dead without going into any of the lore of Day of the Dead specifically, which we'll save for Day of the Dead. But Cinco de Mayo, the shorthand version of it, is a celebration of sovereignty. It's the celebration of the Battle of Pueblo in 1862, and it is... basically, that was an important battle against the French army, which liberated the Mexican Republic, essentially. It was the beginning of their really concerted efforts to liberate themselves from the Empire of Mexico, which was an oligarchic form of government that featured a lot of foreign investors. So, in ways that helped the development of Mexico, specifically Mexico City and those environs, but the cost was sovereignty. And so after the Battle of Pueblo in 1862, the French came back a year later with a bigger army. They won, and for 5 years they were in control of Mexico in Mexico City. After that 5-year period, there was another battle, and with Benito Juarez in command, the French were defeated. The Austrian Emperor, Archduke Maximilian, who was running the government for these investors, at the time, he was captured and executed, and then Mexico gained her sovereignty. What I thought was interesting, and I meant to say yesterday and spaced out, we had the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. The horse called Sovereignty won. And then we have the Cinco de Mayo, we had the Force, May the 4th, and then we had Cinco de Mayo. And so the issue of sovereignty was very high in our thoughts if we connect those two things. And something else in the nervous news popped up, which I thought was kind of interesting.
we had a nice break from that. So
We did, but you can't escape it, folks.
not completely, no.
No, you can't.
You
And
can try.
one of the reasons why we do weave it into these podcasts is because the way people survive challenging times is to be able to strike a balance and to really, really practice self-discipline. Because in times like this of grave division, very, very strong feelings on both sides, the way that you bridge those gaps is to find ways that you can communicate things that you agree upon or partially agree upon, and by not letting things get out of control. Because when one side or the other is in control, if you let it go crazy, where it seems really dangerous for the public, then other forces have to be brought to bear. And you do not want that, because that takes a very long time to unwind and to regain the freedoms that you had previously. So the trick is, and I do mean it's something of a balancing act, is to keep that reined in. Along with that, our President Trump asked the president of Mexico whether their government would appreciate having our United States troops go down into Mexico to help control the gang activities down there, which have been so devastating for so many of the people who have had to
How long
flee.
have I been saying that?
You've been saying it as a good thing. But I think that when you offer military control to a foreign country, you offer that sort of power over your own sovereignty, That's a really, really dangerous act. And especially, I think, not everybody has loved seeing how our military has been used to shore up immigration, checkpoints at borders and things like that. It scares people.
Yeah,
And
but the thing of it is, every time any of these poor migrants are interviewed, they all say, we don't want to leave our home. It just isn't safe. It's dangerous. And if you could just control that problem, they'd be happy to stay where they are or go back. And if the country that we're talking about, in this case Mexico, has a hard time controlling that situation, then that's money well spent. It's going to be a lot less expensive to send some, security forces, we'll call it, maybe not military, down there to help control the situation so people can stay where they want to be.
I disagree entirely. Had we not had talk of making Canada the 51st state, had we not been talking about annexing Greenland one way or another.
So are you saying you disagree with the concept or just that the way this particular environment is at the moment?
I think the environment is absolutely not one that you could trust would go home when you told us to go home. And so I think it's a far higher risk to invite foreign troops onto your soil. And that was what the president of Mexico thanked President Trump for the offer, but said, no, we value our sovereignty. And again, that word. So I think on this weekend wrap up, these 3 or 4 days, sovereignty seems to be the watchword, the key word here. And I think that that's not insignificant. I know Bernie Sanders has been going on his tour, and he said something that kind of made me feel better, I'll be honest. When we talk about the 1% and how much power they have, and we see Doge, we see President Trump himself, who has a great deal of wealth and is not really viscerally understanding of what it means to be a middle-class person in the United States. He doesn't really recognize those challenges and struggles because he hasn't experienced it. It's nothing against him specifically. It's like anything that you haven't experienced yourself. You can be empathetic to a degree, but you don't feel it in your gut like you do if you live that. Anyway, back to Bernie. He reminded people, he said, yes, the 1% has unprecedented power in these days, and that is not good. And especially giving them the ability to chop programs that the 99% rely on to a high degree, that's also very, I'll say, nervous. And then he pivoted a little bit and he said, but I will remind you, the 99% has a great deal of power because you are 99% of the population. And so when you think, okay, we're always talking about balance, 99% versus the 1% or the 1% versus the 99%, we have to remember we have great power and we have to be able to focus it and keep an eye on the checks and the balances that have made this country the special place that it is for all citizens. And we have to, again and again, reiterate, what does the Constitution guarantee every individual? Not just the rich, not just the powerful, but every individual in all walks of life, because that is what has attracted people to our country. And it feels like it's not as rock solid as it once was, but we have to insist that our representatives, that they're speaking for all of us and not just for tax cuts that they might enjoy or their rich friends might be depending upon.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
In what way?
Because if nobody's really listening to the Constitution, apparently. I read a book once. It's a book by a guy who was in law school, and excuse me, he related some of his experiences as he went through school and then clerked and then, had some duties in certain courts and that sort of thing. And he began to see early on the inequities of what goes on there, and the people from lower socioeconomic levels especially, or, sexual orientation or whatever. And, being wide-eyed and optimistic from being a new student, from what he's learning and about the Constitution and how wonderful all these concepts are, about equality and all that, and becoming more and more disillusioned, understanding from his experience that this is not translating to the courts. In fact, he said there was one particular bad judge that when he would bring up the Constitution, or even say the word, he would say, "We don't do the Constitution in this court." Literally.
Wow.
And he said he's a lawyer now, but he's still, one of the ones that are fighting to get back to what the real things should be that the Constitution is laying out, but they're just not following it.
Well, I think we need to insist on it, and it not to the place of violence or vandalism or anything like that. But I do think if we are strong in our convictions, and when there is a town hall, go there, write your letters, send your emails, but not with threats of violence. And that upsets me, regardless of who the representative is or what their political affiliation is. It is never okay to send death threats or personal slurs against anyone. It won't work. It won't serve a thing. It only further causes division, and it also labels yourself as someone who is out of control, who does not really understand the mechanisms of maintaining a society where everyone can live. And so that all has to be made a priority over the next while. But I did appreciate kind of the word sovereignty in those three instances coming to the forefront. And like I say, I meant to say something yesterday and it's completely spaced out. And today, again and again, we talk about balance. And I was realizing as I was sitting watching Kelly and her kittens that they're all about balance. A cat, when I see these little kittens, getting on the windowsill or balancing calmly enough on the back of a chair.
The cat segue.
Yeah, the cat segue. But no, really, to me, it's kind of meaningful. And with cats, there's so much lore. I, as you know, love the lore of all of these things.
Yeah.
And there's so many superstitions about cats.
Oh, yeah.
And we will, right here on Down the Donut Hole, we'll tell how to undo the bad luck that you supposedly take on if a black cat crosses your path. I've got some time-honored...
Turn around, I would say.
That's a good thought, Dave. Let's go home and start over.
Because
that is one of them.
If you don't keep going straight, then
it's
it
not
didn't
your
cross
path.
your path, yeah.
Yeah.
Although it changed your path. So
yeah. You'd have to curve your path, but usually they say just go home and start over.
What if you jump over the cat? How would that work?
Now, see, I don't know anything about that specifically.
But
I'm going to save that. So
okay.
I'll save these and because everybody needs to know this information. In terms of black cats specifically, in Japan, in Asian cultures, black cats are considered good luck, not bad luck. And I think that's kind of interesting because maybe you need to just pretend you're not where you are so that you're getting the opposite. And in Europe, in the U.S., black cats are associated with bad luck and witchcraft, that sort of thing. In some parts of England, however, people give or have given, probably this is old, black cats as a wedding gift because it's good luck for the bride. Now I wonder how that connects.
I don't know. Maybe the opposite of the white dress. I don't know.
Well, maybe, that's part of what I love about the study of lore is sometimes you hear or read these things and then it's up to you to take it apart and figure it out. And maybe if you learn to love a little black kitten, and we certainly have before. Remember that place we rented where there was a black cat.
The blackness.
Young. Dave called it the blackness.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because at night the blackness would come to our door because we'd been known to give the blackness treats. But you couldn't see the cat. All you could see was these beautiful amber eyes peering through the low part of the screen door. It was lovely. But maybe if you learn to love a black cat or a black kitten, that it wraps whatever potential ill luck.
In the morning, early morning, the cat would come and jump up on the stairs to the metal steps to this RV that we were in at the time. And you could hear it thump, thump. Yeah. And I would say, the blackness is descending upon us.
You did say that. Oh, I did. I took a picture of the blackness eyes looking through the screen door. It was such a good picture because you just saw these amber eyes. And I saved that picture and I printed, how was it? I printed it out and it was sitting on the table and the kids were putting together a puzzle and I had just this little picture of the blackness eyes. And it looked like a puzzle piece, because it was just surrounded. It looked like the eyes themselves should have been a puzzle piece and that it was sitting at the table was dark colored. And I'll never forget that. It was just such a curious thing. And I wish I had been smart enough to take a picture of that, but I wasn't, of that sitting amid the other puzzle pieces because it looked like that's what it was. Have you seen those little cat figurines that have one of its front paws that waves up and down, and they're usually solar powered?
Yeah, I think so.
You can buy them usually in Asian grocery stores, but especially around Chinese New Year, that sort of thing. Those little cats are beckoning cats or lucky cats, and they are placed in businesses because the belief is that they attract customers and therefore prosperity and wealth to the owner of the business. Isn't that nice? I never understood what the meaning of those. I thought it was just kind of cheerful. And I know little kids think those are wonderful, especially if they're in the window where the sun hits them and recharges that little solar battery so that the arm continuously waves in a cheery way. Kids love that, and I love it too. I think it's really, really kind of great. So yeah, it attracts me into the store. So if you can go by me, it does work.
You don't need any help with that one.
Going into any store. Well, I don't spend money a lot in stores. I don't, but I do like to go in and get ideas for things, inspiration for things, and we do buy. I like imported foods to try something different.
Yeah, that's different. Sure.
Yeah, that's really nice. So some cultures think that, this one's interesting, that cats that are polydactyl. Do you know what that means?
A lot of dact?
No.
Many
Dave,
dact?
I'll tell you this. Polydactyl, many toes, many digits. And so, 6 toe cats that have 6 toes, some of them even more toes, that they're considered very lucky for a household to have those. Because if you think about that, now again, this is us kind of interpreting it.
Do they also have 6 claws?
Well, every toe is regular. So it's extra. And so you will have extra good fortune and extra prosperity, that money will come to you if you have a cat that has more than the normal amount of toes. So I think that's kind of cool too, isn't it?
Again, it depends on if that 6th one has a claw or not.
Well, they do, of course. So be nice
I
to
don't
the
know.
kitties so they don't. Although our kittens, Kelly's kittens, they like to kind of latch onto you with their little claws.
Yeah, that's
and
my
they
point.
nibble.
Yeah.
They nibble. It kind of it hurts a little bit, but not terribly. And you know that their intent is not to harm you.
I think that's true, but I think more and more as they age, that it hurts more and more.
It does. It does. And oh my goodness, Kelly has done so much damage in that screened patio. She's ripped up 3 screens, the big ones. We were talking about it yesterday. I went out and spent quite a bit of time yesterday. Time, by the way, I don't have. I'm scheduled to do a business trip, a big project that I need to turn my attention to, but I can't have that because at night we're hearing the owls. This is owl love song season, and she wants to take those cats out into the woods and hunt at night especially. And so she lures them, rips my screen up, rips off tape, rips up other barriers that I've kind of chucked in there. It looks awful. It looks just awful. But until the kitties go to be spayed and neutered, which is scheduled for Thursday, by the way, and they will be picked up on Thursday, we have to kind of keep them safe. Now, I'm going to get quiet here. And this is an audio recording.
Here's the car.
Okay.
We'll
listen,
get quiet.
Listen.
This is very,
Okay.
very low because it's off in the woods, so we'll get quiet and listen carefully.
Okay, you'll hear the owls. It's in the middle of the night.
It goes on for a while, so we'll let it play.
So that's what we hear at night. And that does not give me a peaceful, easy feeling when all of our efforts to keep the kittens safe until they can be spayed and neutered and find appropriate homes for them. I really can't handle 5 cats. Kelly can come and go, and that'll work.
Well, apparently she was hiding between flower pots or something
Yes,
herself. She's not the brightest thing, I'm afraid.
I think Kelly missed a lot of concerted lessons from her mother because she was little when she came to us. And the urge to hunt for Kelly is very, very strong. And that will always be so with pretty little Calico Kelly. And I don't want her to be different. She needs to be spayed and neutered, as do the 4 kittens. And the 4 kittens will be much better off with real homes, forever homes. And so when they go on Thursday, I think the lady already has homes lined up for them. So these are our last few days with the kittens, and I am feeling horrible. It makes me cry just to even think about it. I'm really struggling with it, but I know it's the right thing to do.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh my goodness. And my birdies in the back window flew away. So I'm really suffering from the impending empty nest syndrome, I guess.
Yeah. Well, especially where we are, there'll always be some other critter.
Yeah, well, probably.
Hopefully not a snake inside.
People drop off their cats. There are so many cats out in the woods.
I know.
I hear them at night quarreling, and Kelly hears them, and her ears pick right up. And the first thing Kelly wants to do is head on out there to
Have more kittens.
to enter into the into the fray, whatever it is. Well, Kelly's going to be fixed herself. It needs to be.
Yeah.
As much as I have loved having the kittens and how much I consider having them a blessing, at the same time, I understand that being trapped indoors is not a good thing.
No.
Certainly for Kelly, but we cannot have, more breeding cats out in these woods, because the life that they will lead will not be pleasant. And we've said before that Kelly herself does not play. I mean, you can't get her interested in playing with a ball or anything. The most that Kelly enjoys, the thing she loves the most, is to sit beside me, not on my lap ever, and be brushed. And I try to do that 2 or 3 times a day, because Kelly, now you can tell she is very much over the responsibility of nursing those kittens. And when she's down on the ground, nursing them, you can barely see Kelly, because the kittens are big now. They're getting really big and robust. They look wonderful. She's done a good job for not being maybe the most attentive mama, but she's done a good job for such a young kitten. And now it's funny because they come and they sort of attack her. They try to flip her over so that they can nurse, and she doesn't want that. She's gradually weaning them. And what she'll do is it's a very narrow coffee table in front of a settee out in this patio room that we have. None of our stuff is fancy stuff. It's stuff I picked up at the thrift shop. You hear me call this place a cottage. It's a cottage. We just come here, we rest here. We do the normal amount of work if we can. And lately, since we started this podcast, I'm way behind on outdoor work and things like that. But I always believe things will level out. But she'll go and sit on that narrow coffee table and tighten herself up as much as she can so they can't nurse, so they can't flip her over on her side and nurse, which,
well, to be fair, the podcast takes up a lot less time than taking care of all those cats.
Oh, I know. And sometimes I can tell that she does appreciate that we babysit the cats when she wants us to babysit the cats. But now it's almost a contest of wills, because I insist that they do not go out after dusk. They just can't. The kittens cannot. It's not great that Kelly's out there, because there are a lot of owls. And last night, oh my goodness, it went on, and it was so loud. And I was so worried, because she's got that screen ripped up, and no effort of mine has been able to seal it completely.
Yeah, and she keeps wanting to take the cats outside at night.
Yeah.
It's like, I think you're either really dumb or you kind of want the owls to get them because you're just tired.
No, she wants to teach them. I give her the respect of, that is her nature. That's what she understands, and I'm preventing her from doing that. And she will. She brings them newts, and we talked about her bringing them the squirrel and other critters. But she wants the best for them. And it's interesting to me because Patch looks most like her with the colored fur. She is black and white, and Patch's fur is the softest fur I have ever felt in my life. I love to pet Patch most of all because it's just ethereal how soft her black and white fur is. But she would follow Kelly to the ends of the earth. And right now there are snakes. That is not a recipe for a long, safe life to be out in the forest. And so if we get them fixed, if somebody else adopts them and they wind up being able to go outside, at least we don't have to worry about them reproducing and adding to the cat colonies that are already out there. Patch is a little more secretive, a little more of a loner than the other three kittens are. But she's now, just lately, in the last few days, gotten so she enjoys being petted more. And I gently, gently brush the kittens too, because I think that's a good thing for them to learn to do, to tolerate and enjoy that. And Kelly, as I've discussed before, is not really overburdened with grooming the kittens. You'll see her for a second or two, but then no. She nurses them, and then she likes them to go back to sleep. And the nursing pretty much makes that happen quicker. And so she's all about that, even though she wants to cut that as short as she possibly can. So Patch sits on the windowsill. So far, I haven't caught Patch trying to tear up the screen. But when Kelly's outside, she sits outside the window and trills loudly, trying to entice the kittens to jump through that slice she put in one of the screens. The other one I have pretty well hidden. And I think she kind of forgot about that because I haven't seen her working on it. And, but Patch is usually the first one to respond to the trilling, followed by Sassy. Sassy is the littlest of all the kittens. She's a little tabby. She has the most innocent face I have ever seen in my life, and it is completely disarming, and it's like a disguise because Sassy, as her name would imply, is very intrepid. She's willing to try things, and because she's light and little, she can get herself in places that the other ones are a little bit too rambunctious and still too temporarily uncoordinated to be able to pull off. But when Kelly lures them outside with her trills, Sassy has a pretty good ability to squeeze behind my barriers that I have put up. And, so she's pretty successful making escapes. More successful, I would say, than Patch, who tries first, but has a little more difficulty with the acrobatics of it all than does Sassy. Then the two Siamese. Carob, who the cat rescue lady who's going to take care of the spay and neuter and has homes lined up for them, she said that Carob is a lynx point Siamese. And Carob is the only male of the four, and he has a totally different energy. He likes to bound and pounce, and he's I don't want to use the word aggressive, but for want of a better one, I kind of have to. He likes tumbling. He likes very physical play, where the other ones sometimes will vie for a piece of ribbon, or we have some of those little toys that are like a straw and there's ribbons and feathers hooked to it. He's more interested in taking it from someone else or pouncing on the other kitten, the sibling, who has the toy. So, but he's also a big baby. He comes and he likes to cuddle at night, which is surprising because when you watch him in action, you wouldn't think that he's such a cuddle bug, but he is.
Have we gotten up pictures of each one of them and their names yet? If
Des said that he will help put together like a little photo gallery of each of the kittens so that everybody can be updated. So
see what they look like.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And he's really, really good at it and much, much quicker. Des helps us an awful lot with this podcast, doing things behind the scenes. He's been really busy lately, and his schedule has been changing back and forth. And so he hasn't been able to drop in and join us for coffee and a chat in the morning.
And a donut hole.
Down the donut hole. But he does help us an awful lot with the tech stuff and behind the scenes stuff. Dave is really good at it too. So the only one who isn't is me. But hey.
You can't do everything.
That's what I say. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. Then we have Smidge, also known as Midge. Midge is...
So you just take an S off randomly?
Yeah.
Go back and forth?
Yeah.
Okay.
But remember the Barbie dolls, original Barbie dolls, their pal was Midge.
Smidge, yeah.
Yeah, so not Smidge, but Midge. But Smidge, she is what the cat rescue lady said is a snowshoe Siamese. And her fur is very white. And both Smidge and
Midge.
Carob,
Oh,
I worry about those two at night mostly, and followed by Patch because of the bright white. The owls would be able to spot them much more easily than they could spot Sassy, who is smaller and darker colored. Her underside, Sassy's underside is light colored white, and she does wear a white garter, but she's smaller and she can fit him in among the flower pots. And, she gets quiet and just looks. And I think she would have a better chance of survival than the ones that are lighter in color and easier to spot. And so I don't sleep well. Dave, I don't. I worry about the cats. And I used to, when Kelly was pregnant, I used to worry because I think, I don't want her to have her babies outside because they're just so vulnerable. And I put that box in the screen room and you made a way she could sneak in. And that's what happened. And I was really glad about it. But now that we've come to this contest of wills,
did the owls wake you up last night? Was that what it was?
Well, they invaded my dream. And so I was conscious of this owl sound outside because you know how when you have a baby in your house or a vulnerable person, your level of sleep is not what it is before they joined your household or before the situation became critical. I am always listening. I listen, and at night, one of the last things I do before I go to bed is prop up brooms or something like that near the vulnerability points that Kelly has ripped up, so that if I hear a noise fall, something safe that wouldn't, cut anybody or hurt the kittens or anything, but something that would alert me that I need to get up and go out and collect the kittens and bring them back in. And usually if I do that and then give them just a little bit of cream or a treat or something, they're happy enough to come in. Although they love their playtime outside. And we do take them out and let them just be kittens and enjoy it outside. And that is so delightful to watch, climbing little trees and tumbling and touching leaves and things like that. It's really fun to see it, and I shall miss it greatly. But again, I have to remind myself I am doing the right thing. My birdies have flown away. I keep changing the subject to that. I did get to see the last, 5 minutes of their residency there. They had gotten so big. You couldn't see them. The nest is really messy and very kind of large.
Did you get video of that?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me. I did. I got video.
Sort of.
I got video. There were 4 birdies in there, and they were making a tremendous amount of noise. And I told all of our listeners that I had a piece of plastic over that window to stop drafts, but the birds didn't like it when I tried to take that off. So what we were getting was essentially a shadow play of the parent birds feeding the babies in this big leafy nest. We did move it a couple of times so that we could get a clear picture, and I do have a fairly clear picture of what the birds actually look like, although I have not had a chance to kind of go through the bird books and look. The last day, they were so big and rambunctious when the parents were coming bringing food. And I think I remember telling everyone that the parents stopped sticking their heads with the food into the nest, and instead they were luring the birds to the opening and then finally out into the window ledge itself. Now, that window is pretty well down. They had to kind of duck through the opening onto some of the Spanish ironwork, and then they'd fly away, which was, it was really fascinating to watch. And after the mama bird flew away the other day, I put my phone in under the plastic draft stopper, and the birds who had been cheeping and carrying on and was so loud, which is what alerted me to the fact that, hey, something momentous is happening. I put my phone in there so I could maybe get video, and they froze. They absolutely, from that point on, did not make a sound. And that was so amazing because their coloration completely matched that crazy slapdash looking nest. But as they came out of the nest, literally flapping around, hopping around, they were really destroying the nest in that process. So there was a big hole in the nest. Well, the first one bird flies away. I was surprised by that because I thought that the process of the parents trying to lure them away would take longer. But first one went, then a second, then the last two. And I think that's when I stuck my camera in behind that plastic draft thing. And then the third flew. And there was one. And I thought, wow, I'm going to get the flight of the last of the little birdies from 2025. And I thought, wow, this is so great. And so I slowly moved my phone so I could get a little glimpse of the empty, beat-up looking nest. And then I slowly tipped it back. But the birdie had already flown while I was doing that. And I'm so mad at myself for not just being patient. What, another 10,
Fooled
20
by
seconds?
a little bird.
Yeah. But now, you know what, though, Dave? It really makes me appreciate those wildlife photographers.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going to, before we run out of time completely, I shall share what the lore books say you should do to undo any bad luck for having had a black cat cross your path. You mentioned one. Turn around. So that's the first one. Go home and start over. Or take 9 steps backward. Specific number, 9 steps backward.
Until you get home.
No, then just 9 backwards and then continue on your path because you've essentially undone your path by taking backward steps.
So one for each of their lives. Is that the idea?
I think so. Or cross your arms and your fingers and your toes.
And sternly wag your finger at them.
No,
So they don't
you're
walk in front of you.
You're confusing people. Their bad luck will not be undone if you don't allow them to take in this interesting, important lore. So cross your arms and fingers and toes, then continue on your path. Or, here's one, spit in the road. Just spit. There's a lot of spitting with superstition.
You're supposed to spit at the cat? Or
No, just spit in the road.
what if you're not on the road?
What if you're on a...
Maybe you should be not
just
walking around in the road.
on the surface that you're walking on. Yeah, so you don't get hit by a car. Or this one I do not endorse, but it is the number one thing that they say. Spit in your hat. You should see Dave looking. Spit in your hat. It seems a little extreme, but go ahead and spit in your hat.
Now we know what's inside the hat of the cat in the hat. A lot of spit.
That's probably the connection, why he thought that. These are not well known these days, but through history they have been well known.
Yeah. Well,
And now there is
well
one more, and we're almost
fact.
out of time. We're almost out of time. So here's another one. If a black cat crosses your path and you want to undo any bad luck that potentially would be there, roll up your pant legs or hike up your skirts.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, who wrote that one?
I don't know. Anyway.
Wouldn't that be suspect about the person who wrote it? It's got to be a guy.
Anyway, there you have it. Roll up your pant legs, hike up your skirts, Anyway, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to the Down the Donut Hole podcast. We'll keep you updated on whether we're able to contain kitties and keep them safe from owls and hawks. This morning they were outside and the hawks were screaming and I had to hurry in. We all have lots of blessings. Let's count them and let's strive for balance. Let's help each other achieve balance and not just focus on scary stuff. And so with that, we shall say, have a great day. See you tomorrow.